Hi there, it's Nicole for Lawn Fawn, and today I'm super excited to share with you this new card featuring the brand new Magic Color Slider dies. If you've been wanting to create a Magic Color Slider card, which is all the rage right now, this die set makes it so easy. And what's fabulous is it comes with lots of different inserts so you can create different windows for your color slider. It comes with everything you need to make an awesome slider card. I'm going to be using some other brand new products with this today. I first die cut my background from some Moonstone cardstock using the largest outside-in stitched rectangle die. This is brand new for the summer release. I'm also cutting apart the Ocean Wave accent dies. These are little dies that are going to create little ocean waves. And what's awesome about these is I thought it would be fun to make my Magic Color Slider card have a background. Yes, the Magic Color Slider is the focal point of this card, but I wanted the base, the background to be fun too. And so what I'm going to do is put these dies down all over the surface of my background. In fact, I'm probably covering up more than I actually needed to. I could have left some of these off. But I'm going to cover up the surface of my background and die cut these. It's going to take a couple times to die cut all of these. I think I used all of them there so you can kind of see all the different designs. You definitely don't have to. But then I'm going to just pop them up, and you can see that I've got these little accent pieces. From the very beginning, I knew what I wanted to do here with the little shark fin from the Duh-Nuh stamp set. This is a little mini stamp set, and it has a cute little shark and fish and a shark fin in it. And I thought the shark fins would be adorable sticking out around the Magic Color Slider out of some of these little ocean wave accents. So that's what I'm creating here. I'm getting my background all ready before I dive into the Magic Color Slider portion of this card. I also probably should preface this video with saying it's long, and I apologize for that, but I think with something so new and innovative like this die set, that it's helpful to maybe not speed up so much of the video that these steps are lost. I really wanted to be able to leave it all in so you could really see what it takes to put this Magic Color Slider together. It's definitely a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I have tried to do the Magic Color Sliders before on my own and have been very unsuccessful. I really like having the dies to do it for me. Okay, I did end up adding, I think, or die cutting one more little space. Like I said, I did not need to do all of these. Some of these are right in the middle of the card that are going to be covered up. I wasn't thinking. I was having too much fun creating all these little ocean wave accents. Now, once I have all of those die cut into my background, I'm going to go ahead and take some Stormy Sky Distress ink and ink up the edges of my panel. And I started out with a pretty light hand, but I ended up being quite a bit more generous with the ink because even though this is not a watercolor cardstock or a Bristol Smooth cardstock, something that's going to react with the water, the paper doesn't really react with the water, the ink does, but it's not a watercolor type of cardstock, I guess is what I want to say. The ink is still going to react with the water. And this is an ocean scene card, so I definitely wanted to spritz water from the Distress sprayer over the surface of this to give my background some texture. And I think it's really successful in this instance because I want this to look like a water scene. So I'm just going to continue inking this up. I'm kind of holding it in the middle since I'm not inking that portion. It's going to be covered up with my Magic Color Slider. Go ahead and spritz this with a little water. I'm going to do it a couple times. I let the water sit there while I grabbed my paper towel. Then I'm just going to blot it dry. And you can see where the ink is definitely more concentrated. It's really wicking away that color, and it's leaving it kind of look like little water droplets or water bubbles. Next, I'm ready to get my components for the Magic Color Slider. This is the window for, or the main component. The side with that little notch is the side you put your window in. I'm using the rectangular notch, or window rather, but you can use the heart or the oval as well. I've also die cut my track from the same color of Moonstone cardstock so that you don't see a white track when this is folded up. It folds, it has the little notch in the top that your slider component comes out of. You can see I've already die cut my slider component. I die cut the notch. I die cut the rectangular background for this. That background, or that rectangle, additional solid rectangle, actually cuts the window. I just die cut my background for this and the window component. I wanted them to be exactly the same size because I want to stamp them. So you can see here's my background. I've got my shark from the Duh-Nuh stamp set. Duh-Nuh, I guess. I don't know how to say it correctly without making the Jaws kind of sound from the movie. Anyway, I'm going to take the shark, the fish, and the bubbles with my die cut rectangle. This is the rectangle from the Magic Color Slider die collection. I have it die cut from white cardstock. I also have it die cut from a transparency. I'm going to stamp it on the white cardstock using Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink so I can do Copic coloring. One thing to keep in mind with these Magic Color sliders, you really are going to want to stamp something flat. You are not going to want die cuts or anything dimensional inside the window. It's going to make that slider track really hard to move. So everything I'm doing here is going to be flat. This is the transparency that I die cut with that die from the die collection. I will swap out now that white panel for the transparency panel. I've not moved my stamps. This is where the MISTI or stamp positioner comes in handy. I'm going to ink up these images now with StazOn ink, something that will not smear or wipe off the transparency, and stamp these images exactly. You want the images on the transparency to be exactly the same as the background. Now you could add additional designs on the inside panel, which this is the inside panel, here the white panel, and not add them to the transparency if you want to. I decided I wanted everything that is going to be on the outside panel to be on the inside as well, or everything inside to be on the outside, if that makes sense. So everything is getting stamped twice. Right now I'm figuring out placement, and I'm adding additional fish and underwater images from the Fantastic stamp set. I've got coral, I've got seaweed. I'm going to add 3 more fish. I'll even add some more bubbles from the Duh-Nuh stamp set by masking off part of my shark. I'm not going to create a fancy mask. I'm going to use a little Post-it tape for that. I will need one mask where my seaweed and coral overlap. So most of the work here is figuring out where everything goes. I want to make sure everything is still going to be visible because this is slightly bigger than what my opening is for the Magic Color Slider frame. So here's just that little scrap of Post-it tape. I'm going to try to figure out my placement for my thought bubbles, or not thought bubbles, the water bubbles. And I think a full scene is just kind of fun. You definitely could go as much or as little as you want to. Go ahead and pick everything up now. Make sure I reposition that because it kind of picked up. And again, jet black ink to stamp all my images on the smooth white cardstock. Once I have this all inked up, I'm going to swap this out for the transparency, ink the stamps up again, this time with some StazOn ink, and stamp it on the transparency. Everything is exactly the same. You want everything to line up perfectly. I didn't remove any of these stamps after I stamped them the first time. And I did end up having to ink everything up twice just to make sure. I wanted the outlines to be nice, bold, and dark. Last part for this is now I need to mask off the seaweed and stamp the coral. So again, same process. Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink for the white cardstock. I did remove this. I didn't mean to, because I wasn't thinking. Since I did remove it, all I have to do is line it back up with my stamped image, pick it up again, swap out this panel for the transparency panel, add my mask over the seaweed, ink up the coral with the StazOn ink and stamp that. I probably need to do that a couple times. Now all of my stamping for the magic color slider is finished. I'm ready to move on to the coloring portion. This is going to be the hidden portion where you pull the magic color slide up. It's going to reveal all this awesome coloring. Again, everything here is flat, and that's going to include the background. And I think to really make the color slider fun, you definitely don't have to, but I wanted to keep with that underwater theme. And since I'm not die cutting these images, because that's not going to make the magic color slider track work very well, I think coloring in the background really makes this whole scene pop. So what I did first was color everything in, and I did speed through this pretty good because it's just coloring. I know that a lot of you like to see the coloring, or at least know what marker colors I used. So I left it in, I sped it up, and I've listed the colors below here on the bottom of the screen. But what I really love is once I have everything colored in, I'm going to color in the background. And I'm using B32 to do this. I guess I'll color in a couple more fish first. But you don't have to be very careful with the water bubbles, and I'll show you why. The two main components for coloring in my background here, because I kind of want it to look like sunlight is filtering in from the upper right corner of this panel. So I'm going to color everything in with B32. And I started with my chisel tip, and I was going to be kind of careful and whatnot. And I was careful around anything that I colored, which I did color in that last fish. But once it's all colored, I'm going to take my colorless blender and go over everything. And you can see I'm pulling it down with the chisel tip, and the colorless blender is wicking away and moving that ink. It's giving that look of filtered sunlight through the ocean. And I went ahead and went over the fish. I ended up darkening up a couple of the areas on the fish that I felt like the colorless blender removed too much of the ink, but I just love the background. Then I went over the bubbles and just colored them in with the colorless blender, and it's going to wick that ink outside of the line. Here's that fish. I thought it got a little too light, so I colored him back in. But there's the background, the inside part of my magic color slider. I'm going to color in the bubbles with the Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen. I'll add detail to the eyes with the Sakura black glaze pen, just like I normally do, but there's not going to be anything dimensional inside the color slider. Anything dimensional is actually going to be on top of the acetate, the window portion of the color slider. So on the inside, I need to make sure that I get my scene centered perfectly. So I've put adhesive on the back of the magic color slider, and I'm going to press that in place. So that's adhered to the back of the magic color slider. I've got my transparency as well. If you have a transparency and it's got protective film on it, make sure you remove that, especially before you start stamping. Then I'm going to take some little Post-it tape or another type of low-tack tape if that's what you have on hand, and I want to tape in place my transparency exactly over my colored images. And then I'm just going to kind of hold it along those outside edges on both sides with a little Post-it tape. Hold that down while I take a little score tape now. This is just super thin 1/8 inch score tape, and I'm going to go around the window. This is going to pick up the transparency so it's adhered to the front of the magic color slider. You could use any kind of thin adhesive. This 1/8 inch score tape is fantastic for this just because it is so thin. So I just need to pull off the backing paper then. I went around the whole inside of my window, and then I'm going to shut this, and I'm sorry, my head got in the way, and pick up my transparency, and then just kind of carefully pull out that Post-it tape. And there is my window perfectly over my inside panel. Now I have score tape on both sides of the track, and the track I did die cut in the same color as the window because I didn't want you to be able to see that or see a different color. You're not really going to see the track, but from a side angle of the card, you could see it if it was white. You're going to want to put the insert in place so you can line it up perfectly. And make sure your track goes all the way around the sides and the bottom. So I have score tape on that on both sides. There's what it looks like. Before I go any further and finish my Magic Color Slider, probably my favorite stamp set from the release is going to sound kind of silly. It's the Push Here stamp set that I just showed you. And it's got all these little push me, press me, open me, pull me, shake me, look inside, lift the flap kind of greetings. Fantastic for interactive cards, right? So super fun. I put Slide Me on the little tab up at the top. I'm removing the backing paper from the other side of my track. Just lifting this up. This track is what is going to help that color slide thing move. So I've shut my Magic Color Slider, and then I think the track works better after you've wiggled it and moved it up and down a few times. Sounds kind of crazy, but after you've moved it up and down a few times, it starts working so much better. So watch that Magic Color Slide. Isn't that fun? I think this is just so super awesome. The fact that this die set is just perfect for creating Magic Color Sliders is, I'm so excited. I just can't even say. I can see myself creating a lot of cards with this die set. Now I added some fun eyes. Like I was talking about earlier, you can't really add anything on the inside of your Magic Color Slider. So any of my dimensional stuff is going to be on the outside. And I have these awesome eyes from Simon Says Stamp. And I thought that they would be perfect for the shark. I think they're funny and cute. So you can see them on when the Magic Color Slide is down. But you're also going to be able to see them when I lift that up. And you see the colorful images. I've also added glossy accents to any of the bubbles. I've got my little shark fins here. I use the same colors to color these in. I did skip that part in the video. I'm adding a stamped greeting with the Stormy Sky Distress ink, that Duh-Nuh, all over the background. You can see the little shark fins fit perfectly coming up through those ocean wave accents. And I think we need some little fish, don't you? I think the fish are going to add a nice pop of color, but they're also going to be super fun. So I did stamp some additional fish. So there's the Magic Color Slider. You can see the bubbles, you can see the eyes. Isn't that fun? I just love it. I'm ready to put it all together now. I'm going to put a little adhesive on the back of my Magic Color Slider. And then I thought, well, maybe I better put my background panel on my card base first. So I'm going to take this, and I've just popped them in there. They're not really secure yet. So to secure them, I'm running my tape runner along the back edge of this panel, and that's going to hold everything in place. I was pretty generous with my adhesive. And then I'm going to adhere this to a top fold card base. I'm just going to use my bone folder here to make sure I have a good crease. And then just simply pop my panel on that card base. Then I can take the Magic Color Slider and center that. You've got the little shark fins going around it, the little fish. And lastly, I need a greeting. In the Magic Color Slider die collection, there's a teeny tiny banner. The You Are Jawsome greeting from the Duh-Nuh stamp set is going to fit perfectly. I die cut the banner from some Blue Jay Lawn Fawn cardstock. I'm stamping the greeting with Versamark ink and then heat embossing with white embossing powder. I'll pop that along the bottom edge of my card, and that is it. That is going to finish off my card. I did add a little black glaze pen to the eye of the one fish that's kind of poking out there along the bottom edge of the frame, but that is it. This finishes off the card. I know this was a long video. Thank you for sticking with me. I hope this has inspired you to try out some Magic Slider cards. They are addicting, they're super fun, and this new die set from Lawn Fawn makes it super easy. I'll show you one more time with the card all together, how cute that is, how easy it is to work, and how fun the interactive element can be. Thanks for joining me today for this Magic Color Slider card featuring brand new stamps and dies from the Lawn Fawn Summer 2017 release. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Lawn Fawn stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.